For years, Steam Next Fest has been kind of like E3 for PC games, only it's virtual so you don't get a migraine from all the noise, and your lunch doesn't have to be the overpriced and underheated pizza from the cafeteria. And instead of waiting in lines all day and getting to play maybe a half dozen games, anybody is welcome to download demos and sample everything to their heart's content. We've played a smorgasbord of this Next Fest's offerings, and with literally hundreds of demos available, we wish this video was big enough to give props to everything we loved. But here are 5 indie games that you need to keep your eyes on in 2024. In the 1940s Pacific Northwest, the United States government experimented with strange new technology with the promise of bettering the world. Over half a century later, those experiments are now locked behind a 30-meter-high wall, and those left inside were never heard from again. What dangers and perhaps even nightmares are contained within are what Pacific Drive thrusts you directly into. When you, a delivery driver, unwittingly find yourself on the inside of the zone, the only allies you have are some voices guiding you over the radio, and the real star of this game, your old beat-up station wagon. In every other game I've played that features driving, I don't think I've ever once cared much about what happens to my vehicles. But in Pacific Drive, you rely on your car not just to get around more easily, but to store belongings, craft supplies, view the map, and more. If you collide with the environment too hard, you risk breaking off panels or popping a tire, and in a survival game like this, that can be a real disadvantage. It's all the more immersive when you have to manually do things like turn the ignition and set the parking brake, which are both good ideas to save on fuel and prevent your car from rolling away, respectively. All the while, eerie and unexplainable anomalies occur all around you. A few seem helpful, like dumpsters that spit out supplies, but most are antagonistic. Strange machines try to drag your car away, parts of the ground shift unexpectedly, and most things in general are in an unstable physical state. I had a particularly stressful moment when I got caught in what I can only describe as a storm that blew in from hell and just about wrecked my car as I floored it through an escape portal with 11% health and no healing items left. All of this is to say that in Pacific Drive, your car is more than just an in-universe vehicle. It's a vehicle that pulls you even deeper into a world that we can't wait to anxiously cruise through later this month. From the folks behind Mark of the Ninja and Don't Starve comes Rotwood, a roguelike dungeon crawler where you and up to 3 of your friends take your furry avatars through the woods and clear out endless creatures like an old-school arcade beat-em-up. An arcade beat-em-up with endless replayability, an ever-evolving playable character, and the tension of potentially losing your build if you die. This is a roguelike after all, so a lot of you out there undoubtedly know what to expect. And the devs absolutely understand the assignment here too. The gameplay loop in Rotwood is a lot like having a bag of chips in front of you. It's just so effortless to go for one more chip or one more room over and over again without even thinking about how much you've consumed already. While I'm not ordinarily one for these kinds of games, even I couldn't simply walk away after losing to the demo's boss the first time. Even though I had lost all of my upgrades, I found enough encouragement to try again and seeing my XP tick up by almost half a level. Surely I could level up at least once, even if I failed again, right? My lizard brain just had to find out, so yeah. I gave it another shot. Despite what the name might imply, Rotwood is absolutely gorgeous. The beautiful hand-drawn art style and impressively detailed animations texture every character with personality, but I mean, what else do you expect from Clay Entertainment at this point? Some of these enemies are so downright adorable that I actually don't want to kill them. But then I wonder what new power-up I'll get after I give them a violent, hammery end, so I slaughter them all anyway. By the way, the answer is projectiles that come out of my hammer every 3rd swing. I love it. If you're tired of waiting for Dark and Darker to maybe or maybe not come back to Steam, may I offer up Dungeonborn as a promising possible alternative. Just like Dark and Darker, Dungeonborn is a dark fantasy PvPvE game that combines multiplayer extraction dungeon crawling with some battle royale spice tossed in for good measure. Before entering the arena, you'll select and customize a class, from magic casting pyromancers and cryomancers to the more up-close and personal fighters and rogues, #rogue4life. More classes are also going to be coming post-launch. Each comes with their own strengths, weaknesses, and abilities which you'll have to strategically play around against both AI enemies and other players. In a standard match, you and any teammates that you choose to bring along will search for treasure and try to find an exit without being killed. Any loot that you escape with can be sold for better weapons, armor, and supplies to start the next round with. But be careful though, because you're only ever 1 or 2 bad decisions away from death, and in this game, death means that anything you had on you is lost for good. Get ready for possible salt when you lose, but major euphoria when you clutch out an escape. All the while, the arena slowly shrinks, pushing players closer together to force PvP encounters. Combat is slow and methodical. This means that every item and every swing of your weapon has major consequences, so you have to be very thoughtful about going for an attack if it's going to leave you wide open for a counter. This also means that I am not very good at the game yet and have died to a bug, as in a literal insect in the opening seconds of a match more than once. And yet, I also kinda want to jump in for just one more go. Again, no beating around the bush here. In a lot of ways, Dungeonborn makes the list for filling the void left by Dark and Darker on Steam's storefront. But if it has its quote-unquote predecessor's staying power, the competition will only push both games to be better and better. Speaking of filling in voids, I know that there's a Mega Man X-shaped hole in a lot of our hearts these days. Anyone who's played Capcom's classic platformer will find it easy to pine for the days of SNES sprites, rockin' soundtracks, and zippy movement. Yeah, they're humongous shoes to try to fill in for anybody, but Berserk Boy is daring enough to attempt living up to the legacy. But whereas Mega Man is about shooting your enemies, combat in Berserk Boy favors physically ramming into them, at least with the 2 powers on display in the demo. The more hits you land within a limited amount of time, the more your combo meter builds up. The higher the combo counter, the more you'll fill your Berserker meter for powerful one-off attacks. In between levels, you'll fall back to your base, a laboratory of sorts that functions as a home for the Resistance in this game's story. For you as the player, it's a hub for buying upgrades to strengthen your moveset, jumping to new missions, and revisiting old ones. Taking a page from Metroidvania games, Berserk Boy encourages you to do some backtracking to reach previously inaccessible areas, find collectibles, save up currency to afford that upgrade you're just shy of affording, or find hidden paths to secure better completion times. And when it's backed by tunes from the composer of Sonic Mania, Streets of Rage 4, and TMNT Shredder's Revenge, every level is worth coming back to for the soundtrack alone. Berserk Boy will bring all the lightning justice you can handle on March 6th. Leave it to an underrepresented aesthetic to catch your eye and beg you to check it out. Drawing heavy inspiration from those anime OVAs from the 80s and 90s that you may be used to watch on VHS, Mullet Mad Jack is an arcadey FPS that hinges on an appropriately over-the-top premise. In a neon-drenched dystopian future ruled by robot billionaires, humans have merged with the internet into a new being that requires dopamine every 10 seconds or else they die. In other words, all of mankind has devolved into the incarnation of Twitch chat. When an influencer princess with over 2 billion followers is kidnapped, it's up to Jack Banhammer to save the day. While live streaming the entire thing, of course. Whoever rescues her will win a pair of shoes as the grand prize. With a setup like that, you think you understand what you're in for? You are wrong. You are very, very wrong. Fast and frenetic is too soft of a phrase to describe the pace of Mullet Mad Jack, but coked out rabid weasel that pounded 10 Red Bulls and got into a chicken coop is a little closer. I'll put it this way, if you can accurately and reliably describe what you just did, I'm convinced that you aren't playing the game right. I think I kicked some guy into a fan where they were ground to a bloody pulp while I chugged soda and landed a few headshots at the same time, but I'm not positive. I'm pretty sure I slid down a slope and shot the head and or nuts of everyone in my way before clocking another one in the face and prying his head off, but I blinked once and missed it. What I do know for sure is that Mullet Mad Jack is a hyperactive, candy-coated, taurine-fueled good time that pays homage to the FPS games that defined the era it celebrates. And at the end of every randomly generated level, you get to choose a perk that makes the next one even more insane. Swap your weapon to a flame sword. Litter the environment with explosive barrels. Make your soda cans detonate when you chuck them. As long as you make it to the end without dying, you won't be kicked all the way back to the beginning again. That being said, having another reason to play some more Mullet Mad Jack would actually be a good thing. It's one of the most power trippy, feels cool to pull off stuff FPS games that I've played since Super Hot. What demos have you been trying out this next fest? Are there any gems that we missed? How many bugs have killed you in Dungeonborn? Tell us in the comments below, and if you want the latest on your most anticipated indie games, you can find it on IGN.